time I see you, let me know. But I planted a seed, just let me grow. I'm on my knees while I'm.
Alrighty, welcome back, you guys. In our last session, we were breaking down how to slip our head off the center line. In today's session, we're going to be breaking down the sweet science of weaving, how to get underneath that line of attack to make sure those straight punches and those hooks are clear out of our way. So there are some pretty bad habits I see when people are weaving. People get way too low in the legs, kind of similar to when we were breaking down the stance. When you get too wide and get too low, what this does is it just loses the leverage and that spring in your stance, which when we're defending, we don't want to sacrifice. We want to keep ourselves nice and loose and springy so we're always able to find our counter punches. So let's get straight into it here. I'll meet you over at the mirror. Find yourself a mirror. You always want to use one. So when starting to learn how to weave, let's just break down the mechanics in both directions here in a simple little repetitive flow drill. From this position here is where I'm going to initiate my weave to the left. So transferring the weight from that back leg the left leg as I rotate using the hips, the core, and the shoulder, and rotate my lead shoulder inward, finishing basically in a slipped off to the left position. From here I have the option where I can slip back or I can just weave back to the right. So when weaving to the right, we're now going to be shifting that weight from that left leg to that back leg here. Now my left shoulder is facing towards my opponent, back shoulder is loaded, always in a position to fire. So from here, I'm just going to be going back and forth now. Back and forth, using that rotation in the thoracic spine, keeping my eyes on my opponent at all times. So sometimes when I see people using their head movement, I see them getting really low in the legs, but keeping their chin up so they can keep their eyes on their opponent's head. And what this does is it still keeps you pretty open. A lot of times I've done this myself and I just get cracked in the temple and I think I'm safe, but I'm really not because I have all this surface area for my opponent to work with. The key is keeping your chin tucked, really hinge at the hips so you don't need to get too low in the quads. And what that does is keeping the chin tucked, keeps the back of your head and the side of your head a little bit more protected. But by hinging in the hips more and not feeling like I have to get so low in the legs because my chin's all the way up in the air, it keeps my punches a little bit looser for when I want to start to counter. We don't want too much tension in the quads or the hips. We want to keep them nice and loose and nice and relaxed while we're doing this so we're not killing too much energy. And that way we're staying ready to fire with our counter punch. So starting the drill, dipped off and subtly hinging at the hips, rotating, using the hips to core and the shoulder, and ensuring I'm not doing this. So right now what I'm doing is I'm weaving in a stationary position. There are different ways of doing this. You can use your weaves to find your opponent's dead zone, so you're stepping from side to side. You can also weave as you're going forward and backward. But for now, let's just start in a stationary position and we'll use our weaves in a combination so that way we can attach our defense with our offense. One thing I'll always say is that our offense and defense need to work together as one unit. It's kind of like a husband and a wife. Once they find a way to work together, it's harmonious. And it's the same with defense and offense. You want to allow them to work together in sync. This next drill, I'm going to be using my weave to the right and my weave to the left to defend and counter. I'm going to start pretty similar to the drill with our slips, but now just replacing it with our weaves. I'm just going to be going back and forth, back and forth. Also notice that when I weave to the left, my back foot pivots towards my opponent. Otherwise, I'm going to be feeling kind of locked here and finding my counter. I'm not going to have as much rotation in the hips. So pivoting the back foot, pivoting it back in. It's kind of like I'm opening. Right now it's closed. It's kind of like I'm opening and closing a gate with that back leg. Opening the gate, closing the gate. Allowing myself to counter now off my right side, and now allowing myself that ability to counter off of my left side. So now let's get into the drill. We're just going to start by weaving back and forth. Anytime you want, you can throw a right hand off of that right weave, and you're always going to finish with a weave right after. What this is training again is always keep your head moving before and after punching. So we're moving, counter, back to moving. You can do the same thing off the opposite side. Find a counter, back to moving. Find a counter. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Rinse and repeat over and over again until that's feeling fluid. It is quite simple, but again, that's where the mental discipline is built. People these days always want fast results. They want the quick 6-minute abs. They want instant noodles. They want to learn how to fight in 30 days. But the reality is things take time. And when you understand that long-term gratification, that discipline translates into everything else in life. So take the time to learn this, have some fun with it, incorporate it with some of the movements we've learned, and then I'll see you in the next lesson. Let's do this.